This movie set a world record that I don't think will ever be topped. Most Spider-Men in a movie.
Oh, for sure.
What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. I'm joined by my lovely lady friend Cam. How you doing, Cam?
Good.
And today we are giving you our non-spoiler review of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the highly anticipated sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. There will be no spoilers in this video, so don't worry. And before we get into this thing, be sure to hit that like button, comment down below your thoughts on this movie if you've seen it, your predictions if you have not, and subscribe and hit that notification bell to help me reach my goal of 80,000 subscribers here on the channel. It will mean a lot. But without further ado, let's talk Across the Spider-Verse. So starting out, I gotta talk about the obvious here. I firmly believe it has some of the most gorgeous animation I've ever seen put to film.
For sure.
Like, it jaw-droppingly good from beginning to end. It's a 2-hour, 20-minute film, and I understand why it got delayed so many times now, because they wanted to perfect the animation. There's shots of characters where there's rain going on, and there's red lighting, and the way that the rain, like, had this reflection, it was so beautiful. Like, honestly, I wish I could get that framed as a moving image on my wall. It was that damn good. The way that we're hopping through different universes here, and it's animated. You mentioned this in the out-of-theater reaction. It's like multiple layers of animation. I cannot imagine the amount of work that went into this.
Yeah, it makes me honestly sick thinking about, like, as somebody who likes to, I dabble in painting and I dabble in sketching, the thought of fully animating something like this actually makes me want to vomit. Like, that's like a lot of work.
I remember I took a simple animation class in college, and I had to, like, make a bear walk. And,
that was, like, the worst thing you've ever done.
It was hellish.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine just how strenuous this creative process was. So kudos to everyone involved in that, because they delivered on one of the most visually stunning animated films to date.
Do you have a favorite thing that was animated in the movie?
It's tough to say. I love the color red and, like, the warm colors. So anytime they were sort of going between universes in a way, the portals, I guess you would call them, it looked so clean.
My favorite thing was the animation of Earth 65, which is Gwen's Earth.
Yeah, and speaking of Gwen Stacy, this is almost Gwen's movie, I would say. Like, the first film's all about Miles, and don't get me wrong, Miles has a huge pivotal role here, but Gwen, I would say, is almost the MVP of this movie. Would you agree?
Of course she is.
Yeah.
She's the MVP of everything.
The movie did a great job of, like, letting us understand her backstory through flashbacks. Her and Miles' relationship is really explored more here. I loved her. I really did.
She's perfect. She's everything to me. All I wanted was more of Gwen, and that's exactly what I got. There's lots of, like, really, really amazing things in this movie. Lots of jaw-dropping moments. The animation's beautiful, but above all of that, to me, what stood out was Gwen and her character and her development and her literally just being so cool and so badass. Like, she does so many just awesome things in this movie. And it's like, yes. And
they cement her as that badass from the start. Like, the opening of the film, I won't go too in detail. It's a really in-depth exploration of her character, and it solidifies her as pretty much the co-main of this film, which I appreciate it, because in the first it's all about Miles and these other variants kind of are on the sideline. She's a starter in this movie, and it pays off.
There's also quite a bit of, what's the word? Homage to her comics, and she is literally the only comics that I ever read ever, and it was just very nice to like be watching the movie and like she's saying something and I'm like, oh my god, that's word for word something she said in the comics.
Yeah, so speaking of that, there's a lot of just love to the entirety of Spider-Man. Like, every Spider-Man fan will have something they love in this movie, whether it is a nod, a little cameo appearance possibly, or just a hint at something that could be coming soon. It is filled with just Spider-Man lore, and fans of this character in the first Spider-Verse are absolutely going to eat it right up. I mean, it was almost overload at one point when there were so many Spider-Man on screen. I was just looking around. When I rewatch this movie, I'm going to try and pick up on even more Easter eggs and details I might have missed, but it is jam-packed with all of those at one certain scene in the film, and trust me, everyone will have something they love. I think it has one of the cooler cameos I've seen in a while.
It's so funny because when everyone who saw like the movie a week ago was coming out, I saw a lot of people say that this movie has their favorite Spider-Man cameo, but it's not who you think it is. And when I was seeing people say that, I was like, I don't understand what that could possibly mean.
I didn't either. I was
seeing it now, fully understand it, fully get it, agree.
Yeah, and when you see the movie, you'll join the club. You know exactly what we're talking about.
You know exactly what we're talking about.
I really am surprised they pulled it off. It worked so well and has me excited for the future.
I hope, there's more of it,
something.
For sure.
Of something. I will say, it's hard for me right now to sit here and compare it to Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse, more of an origin, and it's like a Miles story. It's a quick hitter. This is almost a whole hour longer than that movie.
I said this in my Letterboxd review, which, by the way, I reviewed it on Letterboxd.
Link down below.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Mine?
Yeah.
I never post on Letterboxd. I said of that, it's hard for me to say whether or not this is better than Into the Spider-Verse. To me right now, it feels like they're equal, mostly because it feels like, in my opinion, they're like one continuous movie in a way. It's like trying to pick a favorite child, trying to separate twins. Like, it just doesn't feel right. Fully on par. One in the future might exceed the other in terms of what I like more, but as of right now, after one viewing, they're equal.
They're vastly different movies. This is a lot grander in scale. There's a lot of setup for that conclusion, but I want to tip my hat to the movie because it does a great job of bringing a closure to the story that is set up in this film without being so abrupt. If you guys have seen Fast X, that is one of the most jarring endings to a film ever. And during this movie's climax, I was worrying the whole time. I was like, please don't cut to black. Please don't cut to black. It gives us a satisfying conclusion to the film while still giving us a cliffhanger-ish type of ending that's going to bleed right into Beyond the Spider-Verse, which will be the part 2 of the story.
It's the best, like, cliffhanger I think I've ever seen in a movie for sure. It's
really?
Like, I'd put it on par with the cliffhanger from Mockingjay Part 1 and Breaking Dawn Part 1.
I view this more of like, and you're probably going to hear this a million times, but this is the serious comparison I think of. Infinity War into Endgame. And I hate to say that because it's cliched, but it's true. Like, a little bit of a darker tone going on here, but there's a little bit of hope at the end of the movie. Endgame, Beyond the Spider-Verse, it'll be interesting to see how those two compare to each other. Now, I will say, to me personally, with this movie, after a cold open, I thought it was a little bit of a slow burn. Now, that's not a bad thing necessarily. I thought the pacing was a little slow, and it's not as, action-packed as one might think. Now, I'm not sitting here saying, I need Spider-Man action from beginning to end to enjoy it. That is not true, but it is a bit of a slower burn in terms of we're developing Gwen and where she's been. We're looking at Miles and his familial relationship. We're not really focusing on the grand plot until there's sort of a flip-the-switch moment for me. A lot like in Spider-Man No Way Home when Peter senses Goblin and the movie sort of elevated from there. A certain setting change, where we go to a new location, that is when I fully was like, oh my gosh, this movie's amazing. Took a while to get there though, and I can appreciate how they're trying to build up the characters, but it moved a little slow for me. Now on rewatch, that could be fixed.
See, for me, it was the exact opposite. I was shocked when, after the movie, you told me that all that was an hour long. To me, it felt like 20 minutes.
I checked the time. I was like, damn, it's been 50 minutes already.
To me, it felt like literally 20 minutes. It depends on the person.
It really does. It depends on personal preference. And again, it did a good job of building up Miles, his relationship with his parents, and how that would be pretty huge in the overall grand scheme of the movie. I will say, though, has a super satisfying conclusion. It's like if I went to a big meal, I feel full, but I'm almost ready for dessert, which is going to be Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies I need to watch again before having my full, genuine thoughts on it. It's a lot to unpack.
There's so much happening on the screen, regardless of plot. Just the animation alone, there's so much happening. Like we said earlier, there's different types of animation happening on screen at the same time. Spider-Punk is a crazy animation to look at when he's standing next to someone like Miles, who is a semi-more normal animation. And then you have Spider-Punk who's changing colors every 5 seconds. Everyone's animated.
It's bizarre how they were able to pull it off with different animation styles for the characters, but they're all in the same scene together.
And
that blew my mind.
It felt cohesive, which
was
crazy. There's just a lot going on in terms of animation alone. On top of that, there's a lot going on plot-wise.
It's a much more dense plot. You have to pay full attention in certain scenes where there might be exposition dumps explaining huge concepts within the Spider-Verse, almost like a actual deep dive into the knowledge behind it all.
I fully plan to go back to theaters and watch it with a notepad. Yeah,
this is not Into the Spider-Verse is almost a light watch. You can have it on the background. This movie, it's heavier in subject material. It's darker. It's going to pull on those heartstrings, and there's some pretty emotional moments and reveals that left me fairly shocked, I will say. The voice acting, I want to highlight across the board. Hailee Steinfeld, of course, great. Shameik Moore. Gotta shout out Daniel Kaluuya. I think he was great. One of the more comedic characters here. Yeah.
Kind of needed subtitles for him, but that's just because I'm deaf. Also, our theater had really quiet volume.
Gosh, yeah, this is not a critique of the movie, but the theater we were in, almost at a whisper level, the audio, and it was concerning. So hopefully on round 2 they crank it up. I will say the soundtrack for me, inferior to the first. Not a bad soundtrack, but after Into the Spider-Verse, I walked out, I was like, there's 3 or 4 songs that were bangers. This one, a little lacking there, but, and then I'll let you go, it's not as important in this movie because it just stylistically wouldn't have fit in as well.
That's fair. I told him I don't like the word inferior. I would use the word less iconic because, it's very hard to top what is Sunflower, what is What's Up Danger. It's very hard to top that. I do think the soundtrack was perfect for what this movie was.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it balances out because the score was pretty damn good from what I remember. And I'm excited to hear it in a theater with actual blaring sound.
Yeah.
That will definitely enhance the overall experience. But I can say firmly and with confidence, Across the Spider-Verse is a damn good movie. Is it the greatest comic book film of all time? I'm not so sure about that, and I don't know why that term gets thrown around so much, or why a movie has to hold that title. I don't know why we live in a current era where everything has to be the greatest of blank genre. Just enjoy the movie for what it is, and seriously, go in and just enjoy it. It's a damn great movie, well written from beginning to end, and it tees up that conclusion really well.
I have multiple favorite comic book movies of all time.
Yeah, is this one of them? Could it be?
I'm incredibly biased towards the character of Gwen, so on one rewatch, probably yes.
Okay.
Like it already is. When I rewatch it further, it'll probably only go up from there. I just love her so much.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this one holds up on rewatch, but right now it's a win for me. I think at this moment in time, I still prefer Into the Spider-Verse, but after a rewatch again, this could change. Stay tuned for like my rankings coming later this week. I'll update you guys there, but I really dug this one. Cam, safe to say you did as well?
Yeah.
So that's a wrap. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a win in our books. Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments down below as well as your predictions if you've not yet seen it. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified for future videos and help me reach my goal of 80,000 subscribers here on the channel. Lots of Spidey videos coming this week, especially as we head into the weekend. Stay tuned for all that and more. Until next time, see you guys later.